The topics and opinions expressed on the following show are solely those of the host and their guests, and not those of W4CS Radio, its employees, or affiliates. W4CS makes no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for listening to the Cancer Support Network on W4CS.com.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Survive and Live Well, tips to treat and beat cancer. My goal is to empower you with information to help you regain control of your health. Sit back and listen, or join the chat room. Send in your questions. Remember to visit my website, www.ellenjacobs.wordpress.com, for more details about my guests and their contact information. If you'd like to tweet during the show, you can use the hashtag Survive and Live Well. So today I'm sitting here with Lloyd Burrell, author of How to Beat Electrical Sensitivity, which offers a solution to the growing number of people whose health is being compromised by exposure to wireless and similar technologies. Since becoming sensitized to EMFs from his cell phone in 2002, he has spent the last 10 years researching the effects of electromagnetic fields on our health. So Lloyd joins us from France today here on Survive and Live Well. Welcome, Lloyd. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Ellen. Pleased to be here.
It's great to have you. Lloyd, there is so much controversy and, well, perhaps a bit of a stubbornness to believe that cell phones and other technology can be dangerous to our health. I, for one, believe there is a problem, and I remember when I voiced my all-too-loud opinion on this years back at work, I think others thought I was really nuts. However, two of us sat directly behind two of those old big galoot computer monitors. Remember them? And with both of those monitors pointing right at my left breast, is it any kind of wonder why I had so much cancer in that breast? And my coworker also developed cancer, melanoma as it was, on the side of the monitors, and he didn't make it. So that said, I am eager to encourage others to take the matter seriously. So I thought, Lloyd, maybe we could start today by telling a little bit of your story and how you got involved in EMF and dangers.
Yeah. I'm very happy to be here. Firstly,
Great.
So what I was kind of very unaware, unsuspecting, knew nothing about the dangers of cell phones, didn't even know what EMFs were. I acquired a cell phone in 1998 precisely, and I'd been using it for 4 years, and I was only like a moderate user, nothing like, I wasn't...
Not a chronic user.
No, I wasn't addicted to it by any means. I just used it for my work. It was very handy for my work, and people tend to call me. Well, I had a call transfer, so people called me, and I was running a holiday rental company at the time, and, it made a lot of sense to have this cell phone. And then one day in 2002, I was outside, the cell phone rang. I remember I reached it out of my pocket, took it out of my pocket, answered the call, and I began to feel dizzy, unwell, a very bizarre sensation, kind of seeing stars. And I continued the call. And at the end of the call, I was thinking, well, what's going on? And the cell phone rang again, sometime afterwards. And this time I put the phone to my ear and I felt this pain, this searing pain. And this is basically how it started. Literally from one day to the next, perfectly normal. At the time I was 35 years old, pretty fit. Ate a good diet. I live in France, and I live, in the countryside, and I'm not an excessive drinker. I don't smoke, and this thing suddenly came over me, and literally within days, I couldn't use my cell phone anymore. I started to use my computer more, to kind of adapt to the situation, and it got so I couldn't use my computer. I couldn't even use a regular landline after some time. That's how bad it.
Even a landline, wow.
Yeah, I was hypersensitive, but I didn't know what I was at the time.
Right.
I thought I was, because I went to doctors, and the doctor said, it's stress. Right. And I've done stressful jobs, and I wasn't stressed at all. Not by my definition of stress. I know what I feel like when I'm stressed, and I just didn't feel stressed. Everything was going really well, actually, And so I took the break, took his advice, came back, and didn't use a cell phone at all. And the very first time the cell phone rang, boom, there it was again. And I kind of went on like that for 2 years, trying to pretend that I was okay when I wasn't, just getting steadily worse all the time. And then I came across an article in a national newspaper talking about a guy who was so ill so affected by EMFs and electricity that he had to switch the electricity off at night to get to sleep. And they gave a name to this syndrome, this condition or disease, whatever you want to call it, and that name is electrical sensitivity. And that's really how it all started.
Wow, it's amazing how quickly that can happen, because we all use it on a daily basis. And who would think? I mean, there were no warning signs for you, except for that it was certainly a wake-up call, I guess.
No warning signs at all. Nothing. Zero. Perfectly normal. Nothing at all. Nothing. I've thought back many, many times. Not the slightest inkling of anything ever like that before. The only thing I can remember at one time is when I remember I bought a Gateway computer, sort of in about 1995 or 6. And I remember it was one of these big computer screens like you were just talking about, I think you one.
Big galoots.
Yeah, and I couldn't get the thing to work. It was one of these dial-up modems, and I was messing around with that for ages. And I remember getting a kind of a headache kind of thing going on there. And that's about the nearest thing I can, that I can, remember that resembles that kind of feeling. Right. So yeah, it was completely out of the blue.
Right. And the interesting thing too is we don't want to get to that critical point, and sometimes we actually kind of dismiss, for lack of a better word, symptoms that we feel, little warning signs saying, as your doctor says, oh, it's stress. Oh, I just have a headache. Oh, I didn't drink enough water. Oh, we try and excuse our way out of whatever it is that we do notice. And I know that none of us are going to give up our tech. Our cell phones.
This is the thing, and I'm not saying my message is not to give up the tech. I love gadgets as much as anybody.
Like the rest of us.
Yeah. I've got kids; they love their cell phones. But it's just a question of using these devices intelligently. And to do that, you need to know what the dangers are. And the problem is the information that's been put out by the mass media is very misleading, to put it politely. And this is the problem, is that people are obviously, people don't want to give up their cell phones. And so it's like, for kids, for instance, it's sort of, it's a rite of passage thing. You've got a cell phone, so you're big now, and, you can hang around with the old guys and things like that. And even as an adult, there's a thing about having the latest iPhone or BlackBerry or whatever, And so, okay, these things are great, and they do lots of, fantastic things which we could never have dreamed of. But the message is really to understand, that's what hopefully, I'm going to try and explain today, is that these technologies are dangerous. There are thousands of studies which say that these technologies are dangerous. And it's just a question of, looking into this a little bit and start to make baby steps to, use this technology intelligently.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's what people really have to understand. Everyone says, well, if they were really dangerous, wouldn't somebody tell us that? Wouldn't the government tell us? Wouldn't the cell phones? And actually, some of them, if you read some of the fine print in, let's say you buy a laptop, it says clearly in the instructions, do not put it on your lap. And on the cell phone, the iPhones, it says, do not put it to your ear. They don't
exactly.
Right. They don't want to put that in
Exactly.
bold. They don't want to tell you that these things are dangerous, but they
Yeah.
know that they're dangerous.
They
But
know. They
right.
know because bit by bit things are changing, and as you rightly say, cell phones do come with warnings. An iPhone, and if you look in the iPhone manual, which nobody ever reads because it's so small and so boring, it tells you to keep your iPhone 50 millimeters away from your body when you're using it, and the BlackBerry manual says keep it 25 millimeters away. And the second thing, very interesting, is that to know is that the cell phone manufacturers, they can't actually get insurance for health damage from cell phones.
That's right.
So there's a recognition, in the industry behind closed doors. They know that this is dangerous. And unfortunately, it's, there's a lot of money at stake. The telecoms industry is very powerful, it's a powerful lobby. And it's a big propaganda game, and unfortunately, it's people's lives that are at stake.
That's right. And, we can't prove it overnight. I mean, you had a sort of an immediate overnight reaction, but that most of us won't know that we have a problem until we have a really big problem. In other
Until
words,
it's too late sometimes, unfortunately.
Right.
Yeah, and I consider myself extremely fortunate that I got wise to this. And I didn't need to go and read the studies to know there was a problem. I realized there was a problem, and then I went and read the studies, and I went, wow.
Right. Logic over science.
Yeah. I was thinking, wow, how could I have overlooked this? This is just so obvious. When you look at what the independent scientists are saying, when you look at what the independent studies are saying, it's all, crystal clear.
Right. It's so obvious that it's overlooked. And it's because it's so obvious to us, it's so obvious in general, but yet we all we hear is tech. It's in the schools. I know our schools are becoming almost 100% technology. The kids are using computers, they're using tech for everything. So,
the kids, we got Wi-Fi at school. Great, great.
Yeah.
We've got computers with Wi-Fi. Great, but not great. No,
Not
Wi-Fi,
great.
Digital pulsed radiation, which even the World Health Organization in 2011 came out and said it was possible to be carcinogen. And this is like the WHO. I don't know if you know anything about these people, but there's, they're very, very conservative. They wouldn't hint at any kind of danger unless they were absolutely sure that there was. So
Right.
now they are. Yes. So you can really, it's like red flashing light now. If they've said that, it's there's a problem.
That's right. And it's just, especially here in the United States. I mean, France, you could give me your overall viewpoint there. I know in Israel, I know in Italy, they are more proactive about this. But here in the United States, we stick our heads in the sands, man. We make money off this. We like it. And don't mess with my stuff. Don't mess with my profits and don't mess with my tech.
Yeah, I think there's a tendency to think the grass is always greener elsewhere. Where I live, there's a lot of ignorance about this as well. And I think there is a lot of ignorance generally, and that where there is not ignorance, it's because people have got a direct experience of it. I'll give you an example. My son's changing school, and we went to school, and I said, do you have Wi-Fi? And he said, oh, no, we haven't got Wi-Fi. No, we don't want that. It's dangerous. And I said, you know about that, do you? This is to the headmaster. Mm-hmm. And he said, yeah, because, I know because before I used to work near the Swiss border, and there was a lot, near the Swedish border, and there was a lot of moms and dads, and they worked in the industry, and we could never get them on the cell phones. When there was a problem, we used to ring the cell phones, and they'd never answer. And eventually we cottoned on to why they'd never answer, because they never have them switched on, because they know how dangerous they are.
Interesting. Yeah, well, they're smart, but I think
this is the thing, and unfortunately, this is the thing, because I can go on all day about studies and bioinitiative report and this Sellerton statement and all these, scientists that say it's dangerous and all the rest of it. But if you know somebody who's affected by this, or if you've obviously got some direct experience with it, then that's it. Boom, suddenly it brings it onto your radar and you're going to do something about it. But unfortunately, most people, and I'm probably one of them as well, if it hadn't happened to me, then I would be reacting in the same way. you're just kind of thinking, well, yeah, okay, okay, everything's, the food's polluted, the water's polluted, the atmosphere, the air we breathe is polluted, et cetera, et cetera. So what? Cell phones are bad for us. So what? But it's not so what, because the thing is, what the studies are telling us is that, for me, the way I see it is EMFs are a toxin. So EMFs is kind of this broad term that covers everything to do with the wireless. So this, obviously, cell phones work with wireless, as do cordless phones, as do Wi-Fi. But it also covers non-wireless. So it's also what's in our homes, because that can be dangerous also. That's to say, just what's in our, in the electricity, in the wiring in our homes. And that's something which is overlooked. And there's somebody called Dr. Sam Millen, which has studied this to quite some degree. He's a leading epidemiologist, and he talks about something called dirty electricity, which is intermediary frequencies. And that's to say, basically, the idea is that the electricity in your wiring doesn't stay in your wiring. It permeates out into the room and into you, because the human body is 70% water. So it's not just about wireless. It's about a lot of things. And the problem is that the cell phone and the Wi-Fi and the cordless phone, etc., that just adds on to everything else. And it's the overall exposure which is the problem. It's not just a thing in isolation. It's everything added together. And we get to a point where you're fine, and then one day you're not fine. And you've got, whatever, cancer, Alzheimer's, et cetera, et cetera. So many diseases, there's barely a day goes by where I don't learn that something else is linked to EMF exposures. It's
right, it's an accumulative reaction, and something that we need to be aware of. Like you said, it's not just the cordless, it's your clock radios, it's everything that's plugged in that is adding radiation to your environment. Exactly.
And it's a question of, this is a lot to take on. And obviously, it sounds, I live sort of a normal life, if you want, but I live a different life to probably what most people live. So I don't surround myself with these wireless technologies particularly. And I monitor my environment. And really, this is the key to living, for me, is, to live in a healthy life, is to understand all this and then act in consequence. And acting in consequence means being able to understand what your daily exposures are, because otherwise you're completely in the dark. And, as I say, these EMF exposures, they are dangerous. There is no doubt about it.
Well, there's no doubt in my mind. It's been a big issue for me. Like I said, having had my experience in work, and everyone really thought I was nuts. And I kept saying, first of all, I was working there for a long time with that exposure, and then I was pregnant, and I refused to stand and work at my desk. I used to stand back from my desk with my headset and say, I'm just not I'm not putting my baby behind this monitor, and I loved my job and my boss, but they really thought I was out there, this baby's really gone to her head now, boy. But I know that
the kind of woman's instinct thing, you see. That's
right.
it.
I knew that I was right, and sadly, proof is dangerous. I don't care for the proof that I got, and I know that the other gentleman didn't care for the proof that he received. But we need to start talking about. No, we're not going to give this up. We understand that, but maybe we can start talking about the individual units and culprits, shall we say, and what we can all do to mitigate that damage.
Exactly. Risk. A lot of it is really simple, basic stuff you can do, which I can go through if you like. Things you can do in your home to make it a lot safer. And often it's pretty, some of it's free or it's low cost. It doesn't cost a lot. But once you do get electrically sensitized or you get some other illness, obviously then it costs a lot, and the biggest cost is in your health.
Right.
Yeah. It's not pounds, shillings and pence or dollars, cents and whatever. It's in your health. That's the real cost.
It's your health, and it's dollars and cents, because cancer is not cheap. No matter how much insurance you have, cancer still has a financial toll, and certainly the emotional toll can never be paid for. So
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start with what everyone thinks of first is the cell phone. What can we do with our cell phones?
Well, what can you do? Most cell phones now have got something called airplane mode. So I'm speaking to you assuming you want to keep your cell phone. Personally, I don't have a cell phone. That's my affair. But I'll assume that, like most people, you want to keep it. So the first thing to know is that most of these phones have got this thing called airplane mode or something equivalent. The iPhone calls it airplane mode, for instance, Apple. And what is important about that, I actually did a video which I put on my website because the thing is, it's seeing is believing. You can explain all this, but you actually see how it works with an EMF meter, which is flashing the lights because it's picking up the radiation, which is, screaming its head off because of the radiation when it's actually switched on normally. And then when you actually switch on airplane mode, which actually disarms the wireless function, and you see that it goes completely silent, then you'll understand. You begin to understand. So that's the first thing really is with a cell phone is to use the airplane mode as much as possible and not have it switched on your body. Because even when the cell phone is on standby, it's constantly connecting in with, the nearest cell phone tower, and that's zapping your body, and it's zapping your body, many times a second. So that's the first thing. And then I'd say text, don't talk, because, it's all about, we've got these parts of our body which are particularly vulnerable. They're called organs. And probably the most vulnerable is the brain, and it just so happens that when you put your cell phone next to your ear, you're putting it also right next to your brain. Mm-hmm. And so, I recommend avoiding putting it next to your ear except for emergencies. It's that simple. And also what you can do is you can use, like a headset. Now, I recommend using an air tube headset because there is no wire in it. Because the problem is if you use a wired headset, then it can act as an antenna and amplify the EMFs and make everything even worse. So people think, I'll buy a headset, I'll be fine, keep the phone away from me. No, it makes it worse because the wire, the metal, is actually acting as an antenna. Mm-hmm. And it's beaming it straight into your ear and into your brain. And also the other thing is to text and not talk, because when you're texting, you're still, zapping yourself, still exposing yourself to this pulsed digital radiation, but you're doing it at maybe arm's length, hopefully, and you're doing it, for a very short time, rather than spending hours, or whatever, talking about your hairdo or what you're going to eat tonight, or these pointless conversations that I hear so many people have when I go out and about on the cell phones, is they're just talking absolute nonsense most of the time. And it's totally unnecessary.
Right. It's a social conversation. And even if it's a business conversation, take it back to the office or use your hands free, use a speakerphone, because even when, as you say, text is great. And even though you're radiating your hands, you're probably going to disintegrate your bones. At least you don't text long. You text short. So you're not, as you say, having this major conversation about getting your nails done. Something that is not what we call a critical conversation. And it's short and to the point, and then you can turn it off.
Yeah. Or speakerphone, that's another alternative. It's not always possible. But really texting is better than talking. Mm-hmm.
Great. And, now you know why those Swedish people didn't answer the phone. More of us should take their advice. Okay. So that's phones, and we're not going to store them on our hips. We're not going to store them in our bras because.
No.
Right. I'm just making that point because people tend to do that. They put that thing on their hip.
Bras,
they put it in their pocket.
Breast cancer. Look at the stats. Bras, breast cancer. Mm-hmm. You put them on your back pocket, and hips. Look at the number of hip replacements, people are going into now, and put them next to your heart, in your top pocket, next to your heart. Look at that. Look at people, the number of, the heart attack statistics. So, just think about what you're doing.
Front pocket, you're getting the ovaries, you're getting the male parts, you're getting every single part of you. When you stick it on your hip, you're getting the bone marrow. We need to get those devices off of our body.
Get them off your body. It's easier for a woman generally because you've got the handbag.
Right.
But that's what the men need. They need a bag. You know, if you want to carry it around with it switched on, you don't want it on your body. Get a bag of some sort.
Or they should put it in that airplane mode if they absolutely have to carry their phone, which they may need to for business. They could just turn it off unless they need to make a call, and you can occasionally check to see what you missed and return those important business phone calls, because nobody should be at anyone's beck and call at the drop of a dime. So if you make a conscious effort to check it every few hours or every hour, depending on your job, that should be sufficient for your health in general. Shouldn't be at anyone's beck and call at 24/7, unless you're a doctor and you're of utmost importance. And
obviously there's different. There are some people in the medical community. It's a little bit different. It's what amazes me is how little these people know. These people that are supposed to know about EMFs, doctors and people. Most of them know virtually nothing about all this.
That's right. In fact, they look at you like you're absolutely nuts, like they always did to me.
Yeah.
So let's talk about those computers now. Let's talk about our laptops and our computer screens, our monitors, even those nice new ones we have.
Well, laptops already, it's like just the worst term, because you think laptop, I'll stick it on my lap.
Right.
But don't, tingling thighs. Who's not had tingling thighs when they put the laptop on the lap after a time? It's like the cell phone ear, the tingling ear. Who's not had that, after a while? And so, it's because laptops, obviously, because when we think about EMS, we use something called the EMF spectrum, and it's just a way of understanding all this. And we talk about different categories of EMFs, things like electric fields, magnetic fields, radio frequency, radiation, intermediary frequencies, which I spoke about before as well. But these are really just kind of simplifications. The truth is that computers, for instance, they emit all kinds of different frequencies. And even though you can't feel it, your body's absorbing these unnatural, man-made frequencies, this radiation. And it's giving your body a real hard time dealing with that, So it's the same kind of dealing with EMS is something really simple that you need to understand, and that is it's all about proximity. If you take the strength of the signal out of the equation, that's to say the strength of the radiation or the EMFs, then it's all about proximity, because it falls off very, very quickly, the exposure levels, as you gain distance between the source of the EMFs and yourself. If that's making sense. Mm-hmm. So the further you've got a cell phone from you, it's not a one-to-one relationship, it's like a cubed relationship. It's exponential. So if you're taking it 2 centimeters away from you, it's 6 times less powerful. It's that kind of relationship. Right. So it's really important to get distance. So when you're using a laptop, obviously, not using it on your lap, that's the way of getting distance, preferring a hardwired connection as opposed to a wireless connection, because when you've got wireless, you've got a radiation emitting device in proximity to your body again, which you use for sometimes long hours, as opposed to a cell phone. You can maybe use it for, you'll have a conversation which will last 5-10 minutes, whereas a laptop, you could be using it for hours on end. Right. And exposing yourself for hours on end.
Right, and I'd also like to talk, add in here about the YouTubes via wireless. When we're listening with a headset via our wireless laptop, let's say, and you have this cool YouTube or this informative thing that you want to listen to, you are soaking those up. So, Lloyd, if you can explain that a little bit so people understand how that's transmitting right to their head then?
Anything wireless is using radiation, is digital pulse radiation, because at one time we had a form of radiation which was a lot less dangerous, which was analog. And basically we've gone into the digital era now, and everything is digital, and this means it's something which the human body has got. It takes a lot out of it to cope with it. It puts a big stress on us, on our systems, on our bodies. So Bluetooth, for instance, a lot of this technology is Bluetooth. I spoke about this because you asked me about this before. Bluetooth, Bluetooth's working at 2.4 gigahertz, which is like your microwave oven. Now, you know what your microwave oven does to your food? It excites the molecules in your food and makes it hot. And that's what Bluetooth is doing. Obviously, there's a lot less power, but it's exactly the same principle. Everything, really, you need everything wired. It might be a pain in the backside, but it makes a lot of sense to have the wired mouse, to have the wired printer, to have the hardwired connection to your internet. You don't want anything wireless at all.
Right. And that was a hard lesson for me to learn, I know, because my husband used to say, oh, your disc would look so much neater if you just got rid of these wires. And I said, yeah, I like my wires. I like my head. I like my health. I'll keep my wires. You take your wireless. And he's finally getting an understanding of it. But it's not, always that easy.
Wireless is tremendously attractive until you really understand what it is and how it works.
Cancer is not attractive. I have to tell you that. Cancer is not attractive.
Yeah.
Rather have a messy desk than a messy brain.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I mean, I'm speaking to you on a wired USB connection here. Fine, I've got no wires. I've got no wireless. I've got only wires in my office, right. And I'm very happy with them.
Yes, I like my wires. They're decorations. Call them, like Christmas lights. I'm used to it. And actually, the interesting thing too is my kids have probably become neurotic, but I've gotten them to understand that if they're going to have a cell phone, they're going to have it in airplane mode and only for emergencies. And I have my little
keep it out of the bedroom, unless
oh yes,
really
definitely keep it out of the bedroom.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And out of the backpack unless it's, in airplane mode. Just there to call mom if you have an emergency. But I think that the more that we train our youth to really understand that, they're the ones who are going to make the adults listen.
Yeah.
Some of us are too set in our ways,
Yeah. I mean, for my kids, it was easy because they saw, back like 10 years ago how I was and, how it affected me. So I don't need to lecture them about it. But yeah, that's the problem is that for kids, they're very influenceable and they see these marvelous gadgets and, they want one and they, some kids sleeping with these things under their pillows at night, switched on.
And using them as alarm clocks and
right.
And, they trust their teachers, okay? Teachers expel knowledge. That's what they do. They give you knowledge. And if your teachers are saying use tech, they're having a very hard time with that because what are they going to say to the teacher? What, you're stupid? Are you ignorant? Don't you know that this is dangerous, that you want us to do this? And that is becoming, actually, it's becoming a problem in my world because I'm thinking, well, how do you put a child in that position where they're going to be saying to the teacher, are you not aware of radiation? I don't know. It raises a lot of issues with me, but I think the more educated we can make our children and our educators, the better off we are.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, just to finish on that, the thing is with kids, it's a lot worse for kids because, the studies are telling us that the kids are more vulnerable, greater conductivity of nerve cells, thinner skulls, the immune system, which is not as developed as an adult's. And basically, there are studies which are saying, there's a study which is saying children that use cell phones have got 5 times more likelihood of developing brain tumors. So it's really, with kids, this is the thing which I hold dearest to my heart is really getting the message out for our kids. Because with them, it's a lifetime exposure. The potential exposure is a lifetime. I was 35, so I was 31 when I had my first cell phone. And before that, cell phones hadn't really been around that long. So all my childhood, they didn't really exist.
That's right.
They weren't widespread. And so, but now they are. All this technology is everywhere. And it's pretty worrying, really. Even having your kids which are using this intelligently, we don't know what the effects are going to be. That's right. The truth.
That's right, and that's what I worry about because they are young. Like I said, I didn't have that until I was your age. It wasn't a part of ours, so we don't have the lifetime exposure. And the children's brains are not developed. Everything is not developed. You got that. It's just that whole glucose reaction. You'll find a lot of this information on Lloyd's website for more detail about it. But what he's trying to explain is that children are just much more vulnerable. But we are all vulnerable. And if we are sick or we don't wish to be sick, we really need to pay more attention to this and do really
even if you're in perfect health, you need to pay attention. That's because, you know, what makes me laugh is you get these kind of health freak kind of people. I've never been one, but I've always looked after myself. But you get these people that are obsessive about, you know, what they eat and what they don't eat and what they drink and not having alcohol and not smoking and not being around smokers and using face creams and all this kind of thing. And I'm thinking, well, you know, just stop using your cell phone, you idiot, you know, stop putting that thing next to your brain, you know, for hours on end a day. And already, you know, there's even studies which say you get less wrinkles if you know, EMF exposures create wrinkles, you know. It's linked to everything, every possible thing you can imagine, because the EMFs, they affect our DNA, they affect our cells, the interaction of our cells. Our cells are communicating electrically, and they are affecting this communication. So it's right down to the very building blocks of our bodies.
That's right. And we don't need to be sick to get healthy.
We don't need to be sick to get healthy. And often, we think we're healthy, but we're not really.
Right. And we wait till we're sick to get healthy.
Yeah, you look at someone who's supposedly a picture of health, and actually they're very sick. They're on the verge of, you know, cancer or whatever. And that is, you know, very difficult to decipher. In our, you know, ancient Chinese medicine, could do that. But nowadays, we just, you know, doctors are great for giving out pills. I mean, I'm not criticizing the medical community as a whole, and there's a lot of doctors doing great jobs and things. But the problem is we're in a culture where you're sick, okay, take this pill, or okay, we'll do some surgery on that, or this, you know, and it's very often not the right answer to the problem.
Right. Well, we're not getting to the root cause of the problem. We're just trying to put a Band-Aid on when we have it. That's why when I say you don't have to be sick to get healthy, you want to be healthy so you don't get sick. We want to avoid these damages, so we want to be proactive now and mitigate whatever we can. I mean, my kids feel really foolish that they have these blankets that I make them use. They're called belly armor blankets. And if they're going to sit with any kind of handheld thing or any kind of technology, I make them put the blanket over them, sort of like in the dentist chair when they cover you with that lead blanket. Well, I've got these blankets, and the kids have to put them on there because otherwise I won't allow them to use their technology.
Okay. Yeah.
So, you know,
but, you know, at the same time, what I say also is, you know, you don't want to get obsessional about this either, because that's not the answer. Because, you know, you got to live a life. You know, life's short, and you got to enjoy life. And there's some great sides to this technology, but you just have to kind of take it all in your stride and build this advice, this you know, take on board, you know, what EMFs really are, the truth about all this, and it just becomes obvious, you know, what you have to do, you know, once you've understood, you know, certain things.
Right. So how about a few more tips, sort of like the person who has
cordless phones, first thing that comes to mind, because that's often one of the worst sources of EMF pollution in the home. You know, these cordless phones, and so many people have them next to their beds, because whatever you do at night, that's the thing to understand also is it's not like 8 hours of EMF exposure at night equals 8 hours of EMF exposure in the day. When you sleep, your body is, the cells in your body are undergoing all kinds of processes. There's hormonal changes, and there's, you know, cell rejuvenation, so on and so forth, melatonin, which is created, and all kinds of hormonal interactions and changes. And what we know is the EMF exposures, they impact all this kind of maintenance, if you want, which is going on. And so it's like, if whatever you're exposing yourself to at night, it's very, you know, it's a lot worse than if you were exposing it to
it's magnified, right?
It's magnified, yeah. So cordless phones, you know, in the bedroom, just, oh no, please take them out of the bedroom. Even in the office, I mean, I'm pretty much against cordless phones because they really just are, you don't really need them, you know, like up to 10 years ago, we didn't have them, or 10, 15 years ago, we didn't have them, and we were fine without them. If you really want a cordless phone, then you've got low EMF models now, which are on the market, but you know, you're still getting zapped when you're using it. So that's and they tend to be worse than Wi-Fi in terms of exposures. That's certainly what my testing's shown. And so, yeah, which brings us on to Wi-Fi. And my advice is really, you know, at home, kill the Wi-Fi. You know, get the hardwired in. Okay, you've got cables everywhere, but it really makes a lot of sense. And if you're not ready to kill the Wi-Fi right now, just one really bit of basic advice: switch off at night, because you know, already if you switch off at night, you'll be doing yourself a big favor.
Now, when you say switch off, do you want people to turn off their computer, or do they have to do something more than
you know,
just
the simplest is just to pull the plug on the thing, because unless you're pretty much up, the problem is a lot of these modems and routers now, they reactivate when you switch them off. So you go to bed, before you go to bed, you go into the settings, whatever, the menu, and you switch it off. And then as soon as it gets an upgrade, you know, because these things upgrade permanently, you know, over time, all the time, and boom, the Wi-Fi is switched on again with the next upgrade, which can be like half an hour later, or before. So the safest, unless you've got an EMF meter to actually measure, you know, that this thing does stay switched off, is just to pull the plug on the thing before you go to bed and put it back in the morning when you're ready to use it.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. We've got a few more minutes, so let's do a few more bits of technology. How about and by the way, before we leave cordless phones, I want to tell you that's the worst thing that you ever want to have. Only a house full of cordless phones when you have a blackout, because they will not work. So there's just one more good reason to have a old-fashioned wired phone. Yeah. But how about a few of the other things like the microwaves and like I said, the clock radios, the other things. Like people keep clock radios right by their bed, right, so they can lean over and bop that alarm clock when it goes.
Magnetic fields. So you've all clock radios I've tested, which plug into the wall. You know, then you've got magnetic and electric fields. Anything which, even your light, you know, your bedside light, even when it's not switched on, so it's plugged in, not switched on, you know, not lit, it's giving off electric fields.
Even your lights, interesting.
Even your light, yeah. And that's why really my advice is to, because the wiring in the walls is usually behind the bed, so that can be within inches of your head. So you're sleeping all night next to an electric field from the wiring in your bed, in the walls. So just move your bed, you know, like 6 inches away from the wall. That's the simplest thing to do, rather than, you know, getting somebody in to rip out the wiring. That's the safest. And if you want to go a step further, then you cut the power supply at night. You know, you go to the fuse box and you switch off at night before you go to bed.
That sounds a little bit scary to many of us. We, you know, to not.
But you know, try it, and you'll see how you sleep. Yeah, you'll see how you sleep. You know, I mean, how many people are walking around with headaches and different things all day long, and they're wondering why I've got this, you know, why I can't sleep, why have I got insomnia, you know. Try switching off the electricity supply in your bedroom at night. See, you know, you'll be surprised.
Especially if you have those internal wires at the head of your bed, where your head is directly exposed. Which brings me to another conversation, is that people think, well, it's on the other side of the wall, but EMFs go through the wall. So I think that there's a misconception. Well, but that office is on the other side. There's a wall there. So isn't that enough?
No, it's not enough. So electric fields you can stop pretty easily by regular building materials. Magnetic fields, they go through pretty much everything, and very difficult to shield, very costly to shield. For instance, your clock radio, typically they create magnetic fields, as do, you know, those little transformer units. If you've got a laptop or something, those little black boxes in the wire, before you get to plug those things, on like photocopiers and printers and so on and so forth. They create high magnetic fields also. And so clock radios, sometimes they have the transformer built in. But yeah, typically clock radios emitting very high magnetic fields. And radio frequency, radiation, obviously, which is what I'm talking about here, is cell phones, cordless phones, or Wi-Fi and the rest of it. Obviously, that goes through walls because otherwise your cell phone wouldn't work when you were in your home. How can it not go through walls? It goes through, a recent study I read said that it goes through like 10 people. So if you've got 10 people between you and the cell phone, you're still getting the cell phone radiation.
Right, that's a great explanation, saying, your phone wouldn't work in the other room. That's a great way for us to really understand how easily it goes through those walls. Yeah.
The other thing I should mention also is the bars on your cell phone. That's a really good way of playing safe with your cell phone, is don't use it when it's got like no bars or one bar, because the difference between one bar and all the bars is many thousands of times more power. Usually, it depends from different cell phones, but these things are incredibly sophisticated now, and the modern cell phones have got this ability to ramp up the power tremendously, and so your exposure is not just a few times more; it can be thousands of times more when your cell phone is having to work hard to maintain the signal when it's only got one bar.
That is a great point. And I guess that's also the same thing of when you are searching for a cell. In other words, when you're searching for a connection, you don't want to do that. Just turn the darn thing off and wait until you get to a better neighborhood.
The other thing is, don't put it to your ear. If you are putting it to your ear, don't put it until you've got the actual connection, because that's when it's working the hardest, in the first few seconds.
Great point. Great point. Okay, so we have about a minute or so left here, and I would like, Lloyd, if you could share your website information with us. I have put it on here. Oh, you know what? We have a quick question that just came in. Is it better to use the 3G mobile data? That is a question that was just came in through our chat room.
3G mobile data. What's that mean?
I don't know. I'm sorry. That just came in from our...
As opposed to what?
Instead of Wi-Fi. Oh, she's added instead of Wi-Fi.
Oh, I see.
Instead of Wi-Fi.
I know of no study which says that is better. But I would say it's better to use Wi-Fi than 3G. Yeah, certainly 3G. We've got very limited information about 3G or 4G or anything else compared to other forms of, cell phone technology.
Terrific. Okay, so again, Lloyd, if you could share your website. There's an amazing amount of information on there. So, Lloyd?
Yeah, it's my passion. It's called electricsense.com, and so that's really simple. It's like common sense, because it's all about common sense solutions. It's all one word, electricsense.com. And there's a free report on there, which it's an EMF protection free report. So it gives you lots of information about what you can do, what we've talked about before, and much more, because it's a very dense subject and it's a complicated subject, and it's a subject which I try and demystify and make it easy for people to understand and tell the truth about, because there's a lot of misunderstanding about this subject, a lot of misunderstandings, and so that's really my aim, is to make it a place where people can go, and and obviously people can ask questions on there also, which I always answer. It's electricsense.com. Go there.
I think it's great, and I love the fact, as Lloyd says, you can ask questions there, because we all have questions, just like this one that came in. We all have questions, and sometimes we need that kind of clarity. And it's very hard to find that kind of information. I've used Lloyd's site quite extensively.
As I say, it's my passion, and it's basically, I do all this for free, and then I have I recommend certain meters, I review meters and things, and basically I earn a small commission when somebody buys a meter or something like that, and that's basically how I finance the thing. But it's not a big money-making enterprise, I can assure you. And my goal is to really get the message out about this to share with the world, what's going on. And also I've written a book, which you can buy only from my website at the moment, which is called Beating Electrical Sensitivity, which really gives you the whole thing. And for me, it's the only sort of complete resource I'm aware of on this, and offers a real practical solution to this problem.
Terrific. Well, Lloyd, we're out of time, so I just want to thank you very much for your knowledge and for all that you do to keep us informed. So, Lloyd, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Well, thank you. And this has been Survive and Live Well, Tips to Treat and Beat Cancer on Cancer Support Network, W4CS.com, where you can listen live Tuesdays at 1 p.m. If you missed any part of this show, you can catch it on my website, www.ellenjacobs.wordpress.com. Join us Tuesday, July 31st, when I chat with Carl O'Helby, who overcame lung cancer using natural interventions after being given 6 months to live by conventional doctors in 1974. You won't want to miss this show. This is your host, Ellen Jacobs, one-on-one cancer coaching, empowering you to treat and beat cancer. See you next week.